Okay, and it looks like folks are starting to join. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll give everyone a few minutes just to trickle in. In the meantime, please drop in the chat and let us know where you're joining from, what clinic, city, state. We'd love to hear from you. I'm very curious as to who's joining us this evening. Oh, Ohio. Excellent. Idaho, welcome. Phoenix, Arizona, Texas. Wonderful. So cool. Arlington and Tacoma. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Shannon. Wichita. Excellent. Montana. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We will get started with our webinar today. Welcome. My name is Kaylee McCormack, and I am a leader across our revenue teams at Digitail. I'm so excited to welcome you to today's session, The Hidden Link, How Culture Drives Clinical Outcomes. At Digitail, we work closely with veterinary clinics around the world, and one of the most consistent yet often overlooked drivers of success is culture. The way teams communicate, support each other, and live their values day to day has a profound effect, not just on the client experience, but also on retention and overall growth. That's why we're particularly thrilled to host this conversation today with two incredible leaders who bring unique perspectives to this topic. So first we have Sebastian Gabor, CEO and co-founder of Digitail. Sebastian is deeply passionate about helping veterinary teams reclaim their time and purpose through smart, human-centered technology. And joining him is Dr. Brianna Armstrong, a DVM and medical director at Firehouse Animal Health Center. Firehouse is widely known not only for its medical excellence, but for its intentional culture, one that puts empathy and collaboration and team well-being at the center of everything they do. Dr. Armstrong brings firsthand experience of how investing in culture pays off for patients, clients, and team members alike. So welcome, Sebastian and Dr. Armstrong. We're very happy to have you today.
Great to be here. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so today we'll explore a few different topics. We're going to talk about culture as a clinical lever, data, AI, and the human factor, culture and data and how they equal better outcomes together, real world examples and takeaways that you can take away with you from the session today. And then at the end, we'll have an opportunity for an audience Q&A. So keep your questions in mind because at the end of the session, I will ask you to post some in the chat. So get comfortable and we can dive right in. Our first question will be for you, Dr. Armstrong. So you often say that clinical excellence doesn't start with protocols, it starts with people. And I would love to hear what you mean by that.
I mean that when you are looking at how well we're taking care of our patients and the experience that we're delivering to our clients and our patients, if your team is happy and enjoying their work, that is going to accelerate how successful you are with those other outcomes. So when you take care of your people, then it will directly result in better patient outcomes, less mistakes. Your clients are going to feel it when they come in the building. It's going to be, the experience is going to be different. And I think that's probably true of the Digitail business. And like when you're working with your clients and like, I've worked with y'all's team and know that I just love your people and like the energy they're bringing and they're so happy to help. And that is what our clients are looking for as well. And so if your people have the bandwidth to really go above and beyond and know that if they make a mistake, they're going to be safe and that they're going to be like championed if they're doing a great job, it's going to fuel that fire. So that's really what I mean by if we focus on our people, then the rest will follow.
Thank you. Yes, that
And
definitely resonates with us over at Digitail. Sebastian, did you have anything to
yeah,
add?
and just to jump on this one, so I was lucky enough to be at your practice, Dr. Armstrong, and I think one of the takeaways that I had from leaving there is that it felt that the people wanted to be there, and that was a like big difference. And regardless of again their role, everyone was involved, and it felt that they want to answer the question, how can I help, or what can I do more? It's like that type of productivity, feeling safe basically in the team, which there's definitely a lot of work to get there. So maybe we
Yes.
can dive deeper
Yeah.
later on how to make it work. But indeed, like I can plus one say that that was the feeling when being in the
Yeah.
clinic.
I've even recently have had a shift on when we're looking at hires, like are we hiring people that want a job or are we hiring people that want this job with this hospital and they're passionate about moving this culture forward? And I think that's a good point. Like we want to make sure that the people we have in our practices want to be there and are excited to be there. And I love that you felt that. That's amazing.
And speaking of culture, Dr. Armstrong, would love to hear a little bit more about your people first culture and what that looks like actually on the floor of a veterinary hospital.
Yeah, so a people first culture is where kind of what I described earlier, where you're making decisions about the business and how things are going to impact your team, and even interpersonal decisions that have your team in mind. So it's always a question of like, is this going to make my doctors' lives better and easier? And same for the technicians. And is keeping this client around going to uplift the team or drag the team down? And I think that kind of leadership is a transformational leadership. So you're really taking the people around you and inspiring and lifting them to be the best versions of themselves while holding them accountable to the values you've set for your business. And the opposite of that is, or like I think what's really common in veterinary medicine is this hero culture. And I was really trying to think about like how I was going to describe hero culture for veterinarians that are listening to this in a way that's really, because hopefully we're all in great hospitals and aren't dealing with this in the day to day. But when I think about when I was in my fourth year of vet school and how if I made a mistake, it was like I was going to be crushed and yelled at potentially. And staying there and working long hours and like forgetting to eat lunch because I'm so busy was celebrated. And, just a lot of behaviors that result in burnout and feeling like unsafe to really admit when you don't know something. Like that is what I feel like is really typical in veterinary medicine. And I relate most to it when I was in my like fourth year clinical rotations, unfortunately. And so the difference is in this people first leadership, this transformational style, like the leaders are teaching the team to really collaborate together, that mistakes are okay and they're learning experiences, that if there's a procedural issue, like we figure it out together and we brainstorm together on finding the solution. That does a lot of things, including getting buy-in from the team when they get to participate in finding those solutions, which means it's going to probably be more successful because it wasn't something they were just told to do. They got to help build it out and like now have some ownership in that. And the ownership mentality is everything when it comes to really having a team that wants to help drive success in the hospital. They need to feel like they have some control. And if not, like they actually have control because they really do. Like how the experience that happens is very much in their control. And so that first culture is really like lifting that up and kind of giving them the reins on being able to be human in this hospital environment that is already like so challenging.
That ownership mentality is something that I know is present across all of our values, both with you, Dr. Armstrong, and Sebastian with us over at Digitail. I would love to hear more from both of you about how these core values help drive, accountability and consistency and success within your businesses.
Sebastian, I wanted to ask you, you've started multiple companies. Do you derive values like this every time you start a business?
Amazing question, and that was one of the things I wanted to also place this question for everyone that's listening is again, it's always a journey, right? Like this isn't something that happens overnight, and probably we can dive deeper later on like how long does it take or like what were the key moments to get here. Because if I think of the first company I founded, I was again quite young then, 21. It ended up growing to 100 plus people, building like hundreds of products for like Disney, Hasbro. So really amazing experience. But in that one, honestly, values was an afterthought. Didn't even think about that at that time. And I think the power of values came a lot later when basically faced a lot of difficult challenges, learning that
Mm,
it's impossible to scale after some point, or if you actually want a team that helps you rather than you micromanaging every step of the way, you need to
yeah.
have this. It's impossible to overcome that stage. So 100% it doesn't come overnight, and this was a learning across multiple, let's say, learnings, yes, failed attempts.
I think you said something there that I think is really important when you're growing a business and you're getting more and more people to make like you can't be there as a leader for
Mhm.
everything. And I think that's the same in a big hospital. Like when there's 40 people plus that you're managing, like you can't be there for every interaction. And if your team isn't living by the behaviors that are conducive to a positive environment, then it's going to fail. Like you have to
Mhm.
train the team to drive the culture forward. And if you don't do that at some point, or like what if you go on vacation? Like you've
Yeah.
got to be able to step away and let it still move forward. And so I love that. Actually, one of the doctors I have right now, she came to the hospital when me, the medical director, and my hospital manager weren't there. And she turned down some of our other hospitals because when she came into our hospital, she was like, this is where I want to work. And we weren't even there. Like my team
Yeah.
did that on their own. And so we were like, made sure we praised them a ton because we were like, you guys, that's insane, like incredible that that person felt that way and you did that on your own. Like that was just you and who you are and what you're bringing to this hospital. So I think one thing I'd love to say about these values, and I love that you said that like for some of your companies you didn't start with these. We had some basic core values that Firehouse has as a whole, but we recently made these values with our team's input. And so if you're in a hospital that doesn't have values established, this can be a really fun exercise to
Mhm.
do with your team. If you have an idea of some things that you feel like would be good core values, or you just want to open it up to your team and say, like, what behaviors, like bring it to a team meeting. This is what we did. We said, here are the core values that Firehouse has as a whole. How does this show up every single day? So when we say we like collaboration is a general one for our Firehouse overarching values. We were like, what does this look like every single day that we show up here? And so the team just shouted out what that looks like between them when they interact with clients. And we did that for each of them. And then, but I think if you don't have values, you could just say, like, what do we want our culture to look like? And what are we doing well right now? Write all those behaviors down. I put them into Chat GPT and I
Mhm.
asked it to build out, like, if I give you all these behaviors, list me some values from these behaviors to make it more concise. And so this is what it gave me. It gave me this stuff. I added have fun because we like to laugh a lot at Firehouse 183. And so, but these are the things that came out that was like important to us based on the behaviors that the team called out that they loved as part of our values of our hospital. And then after this, there's some really cool things that you can do when you want to assess like how well are we doing with this, which we can get to in a little bit. But I think if you have values and you don't feel like your team knows what they are and they don't really have a ton of ownership in it, that's why we did this exercise with them because we wanted them to feel like they own this And this is also how we're going to hold them accountable and how we're going to hire and fire and how we're going to call
Hmm.
out why we're making decisions every single day. So it's going to kind of be like this framework that is the guiding path so that the ship can kind of right itself without us having to micromanage, like you said, Sebastian.
Mhm.
Exactly. And you mentioned this one with basically, in order to make them work, you actually need to bring them in and all of the processes that you have from hiring, making decisions, rewarding people, rewarding behaviors. They're basically a tool to help you do that. And I think one of the advice that we got in the early days when we started implementing this was the worst thing that can happen. You write them alone, you keep them on a piece of paper, and no one else knows about them. And that's basically something written somewhere that no one thinks about. And that's basically
Yes.
the worst case scenario of applying it this way. And then you also mentioned this part with buy-in from the team, and it's a common exercise. You need to do it together with everyone. And I think one of the learnings that we had in that process that's worth going through is there's a big difference, or at least what we learned is that there's a big difference between aspirational values, like how do we want to be,
Mm-hmm.
versus what are we known for, or what are we. So I think you phrased the question with what are behaviors that we're currently seeing that are common across
Yeah, I love
all the teams, right?
that's a
That's a
good.
super key question. That's a very good starting point for this because that then helps you see what are we already doing. That's the way of on how we behave. And from there, you can a lot easier start getting the values together. And maybe question, I know it's a bit a tinier fund there, but did you end up also having any stories for each value or some way of, if someone, because everyone understands different things from the same where how are you able to get people to align with like what do we mean when we say stay curious or what do we mean when we say ask for help?
Yeah, I just wrote these little descriptions underneath to kind of help guide us. But what are you guys doing? What exercises do y'all do to make sure everybody's on the same page about it?
So for this one, we have not really published for everyone, but we do have mini stories for every single value
Oh,
that they
cool.
become the this is how we do things, or this is an aspirational part. So that's a big one. What examples can I quickly give? So customer super passion is that everyone is super, so every client is super important, and we treat everyone with utmost respect and care. And one example is even the tiniest client we had at some point, which was a mobile vet, actually on a bicycle going to their clients on a
Oh, wow.
bicycle, is they
Yeah.
they share the feedback with us, something related to how invoices are, the format of the invoice, and that feedback got to the product team. We implemented it in a couple of days, and that was out there. And this was basically going back to it. You don't have to be a super big enterprise client to get the care that you want. Is that as long as you're doing things from passion and you want to practice medicine and help pets, we're here to help and we're listening and we're getting that feedback to reality. And that's basically how we translate
Good
customers for
story.
passion is going that extra mile and caring. And yeah, there's small stories for each one of these ones.
I
Yeah,
feel like we
I'm
could talk about values for the rest of the time today. It's such a passionate topic. But Dr. Armstrong, I love how you said you used ChatGPT to assist in even that most human-centered piece. And so I think that takes us nicely to our next topic, which is around data AI and the human factor. And Sebastian, I know we've got a couple of hot topic questions for you around this. So I would love to hear from you about how you see AI as actually an assistant and not a replacement for the human decision making in veterinary medicine.
Yeah. So for this one, I know. So we've done one of the first AI studies in VetMed, like trying to understand. We ended up reaching to 4,000 clinics together with AHA, and basically it was a question around how people perceive all AI tools. How are they using it? Are they concerned? And if you looked at one of the highest concerns, and it was top close to 40% of people answering that, it was fear of job displacement. And then honestly, when you look at what AI does today, I think that's the wrong way to see this, is because realistically, how LLMs and AI tools have been built, they've been built to supercharge what we currently do. And the most important benefit that we can look at is all the nitty-gritty tasks, all the things that would take time, all the things that you can actually also rely on AI to do. It does very well, and I'm happily giving all those rephrase this, do this context, give me a summary of this other one. Like all those small things give you a lot of time back, and they become more of a supercharger. And that's why, like, if you look also at the slide, is initially it started as time efficiency and management, and then only later, basically, for the past 12 months, you've seen that it started picking a bit more, being able to help in improve like medical decision making. So again, it's more of a brainstorming partner, someone to help collect information quickly. But in reality, if you look at the bottom part, those were the key parts with like its support for staff. It's similar to how we've used Google Chrome and browser and internet for the past 20 years. This is just another tool to help us do more with the time we have. And I think one of the benefits, just to reiterate on this one, is that it's taking over. Like, think about the task you don't want to do, and try it out. I think that's the best way to go around this. And we'll always still need your help and you to check everything that's happening. So that's probably an important footnote. In any time you hear AI tools, it's not something that you can let it on autopilot and just things to happen. It's just helping you get to the quick answer faster, and then you're still the one responsible going into and sharing that with the clients or with anyone else you would need to do that.
And at Digitail, we see AI across the end-to-end journey. I'm curious, how does it support kind of a healthier hospital culture, Sebastian?
Yeah. So with this one, maybe also to connect it with the slide, is we've been doing this for more than 2 years now. So doing this as an AI in vet med. And I guess the biggest learnings were that there's many places where it's not helpful. There's definitely a lot of workflows where AI is more counterproductive than productive. And I think that those were the most important lessons to get right first. And what we've done over time is we've mapped what are all those workflows. In total, we have over 14 workflows today that are actually helped by and supercharged by AI tools. And you'll see me say more AI tools rather than AI in general, because it's a tool that we're using in day to day. And where I think like most important part of creating a culture is it takes away the things you don't want to do, and it gives back time for you to think from time to time, to finish things on time. One of the most rewarding testimonials or videos that we've got from one of our clients saying that, again, they were able to see more patients. That was amazing, but they ended up getting home on time. And when you see that, it's like, that's again, puts smiles on our faces. But it is a transition going from how we're used to do things to trying out, making mistakes, and then making it useful for you and your teams.
I was
And
just, oh,
oh,
sorry. Can
go
I
ahead.
can
Go
I
ahead.
interject?
Yes,
So
please
I was
do.
just thinking, I'm excited about AI and where it could go, because like we were just talking about values, and like what if as it's listening, we had put into it like these are our values at this hospital, and then it tracked how often we were like saying and doing things that aligned with those values, and then we could like track those trends, celebrate it at the team meetings, like call out people who are really doing it well. Like how cool would that be?
100%.
Very cool. And Dr. Brianna, I absolutely love this slide. It was so much fun going through all of your amazing reviews. So we would love to hear, how has a healthier hospital culture contributed to your client satisfaction? Because obviously there's a lot of that at your hospital.
Yes, I'm so proud of our team, and we definitely like pro tip, get Google review QR codes in all your exam rooms. I even have one in the trash can in our bathroom for like when the clients are in there, so like I can do reviews. And I think that's really helped. We've only been open for a little over 2 years, and we have, almost 250 reviews. So it's really helped boost our Google experience with getting reviews. I am most I feel most fulfilled when a client comes in and they're like, we'll get reviews sometimes where it's like, or they'll just say this to the team. Like when I came in, I just felt that it was different here. And they like smiled at me when I came in and called my dog by name, and they were just like happy to welcome me. And what's really interesting is some of my team members were actually clients first that were working at hospitals where they didn't feel comfortable bringing their pets there, and then came to us and was like, and then wanted to work for us, and we ended up hiring them on. And when they talk about like why they wanted to work for us, they were like, they were that client, and they were like, when we came in, it was just, I just felt at home, and like you wanted me here, and that you were excited to see my pet. And so I think that's the biggest difference. And AI has been really interesting because where I think it's helping the client experience is, instead of my teammates like looking at the computer taking notes while they're trying to connect with the client and get a history, now they can look at the client, which was our biggest complaint before, was that the computer was like at the back of the room, so they had to like do one of these to like be like, oh yeah, you know.
Mhm.
And now they can just face the client and just have that really organic, or more organic, I guess I should say, because they are asking like history questions, right? But it's just a more connected experience because they're not doing anything else. They're just listening. And so I love that part. And I think as AI advances and it can, I really think the customer experience is going to be our competitive advantage moving forward. And so I would love to see AI like prompt me with, hey, they told you that their daughter gave birth to their first grandchild last time you saw them. Ask them about that, right? Like remind me about the relationship building things that they told me that I should remember, because that's what they're here for. They're here to build a relationship with me. They need to trust me to take care of their animals. And I think as computery as AI is, there are some really warm, fuzzy things that it can help us do to make that experience better. And those are just a few examples of things that I've like loved and seen so far that have been really beneficial for us.
I have two ones that are very popular. So besides this one, which is 100% super important, like the ability to actually focus on the pet parent when you're in the exam room. But the two other ones that have been quite popular, one is similar to what you've said, is having the insights of all the small things. We've built something called the Digitail summary, and it's basically goes through all the medical records, all client conversations, any text, anything that is in the system, and provides that summary. So if there's any conversation from 3 years ago where maybe someone was upset or there was a key information mentioned, it highlights that for you to have a quick overview of that in the first 10 seconds. And the other one, at least from a pet parent experience that was highly appreciated, was the personalized intakes. And for the
Mm.
pet parents to be able to do that at home when they're with their partner on the couch and one day before coming into the clinic gives a lot of comfort for them, makes it a lot less stressful. And then when they come there, they can focus on actually the conversation and what's happening rather than worrying, oh, do I remember this? Do I know? Do I have all the information?
Oh, nice. So they get the history questions that are tailored to them, but ahead of
Yes,
time. Oh,
exactly.
and do you know, like, I always wondered about that, and I've seen some other people do that too, but like, how successful are you guys at getting that data back? Like, do most pet parents fill it out?
For the pet parents that have the app, so a lot, maybe to phrase it this way is, it depends a lot on what the pet parent hears when they leave the clinic. So if you're
Gotcha.
encouraging them to, hey, we do prefer having conversations through the app, or we do prefer, you can also book online next time you come. So if they get that encouragement, they're more likely to use, and we have clinics that have up to 80% adoption of any like pet
Nice.
parent app online booking systems. And out of those, it's currently we wouldn't have a benchmark, but we're seeing probably half of the pet parents that use the app will use the intakes.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, online booking is a game changer. Ours was down for a couple of days, and we like our appointment load reduced by like 50%. It was unbelievable. If you're not
Well, okay.
using online booking yet, you should be. Another pro tip.
Great tips from today so far. I'd love to talk a little bit about further about this kind of intersection of culture and data and how they can work together to achieve better outcomes. So, Dr. Armstrong, I'm wondering if you have an example of when people first values and smart data actually work together to solve problem.
Yeah, so I'm actually measuring the culture in our hospital to get data right now. So I sent out a survey to measure how my team feels like we're doing. And I bet you I can drop the link in the chat right now for
Mhm.
the survey template. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. This is a template of the one that we sent out about a week ago, and you can download this template and use it if you want. It has some tailored stuff to our hospital in it, but the questions are all pretty generic. Um, and then there's overarching sections. And so this is something that we're going to use. We built this based off of our values, and we're going to use this to assess like how we're doing and where we have room for improvement. It is set up to be anonymous, though we've like allowed for the team to put their name in if they feel like they want to. And then after we get all the results back, I'm gonna use ChatGPT again as my like leadership and culture consultant to go through the results and strategize like where are weaknesses, where are the strengths, set me up a plan of how we're gonna improve these things. How do I talk to the team about it and get buy-in from them for whatever the weaknesses are so that we can do this together as a team? And then it's also gonna build me out a strategic like a secondary survey based on what we needed to improve on that we'll use in about 3 to 6 months to track progress. So I think and then we're talking about like how we can use what AI is picking up to better assess these soft skills, these interpersonal skills that we really make a difference for how your team is working together, how your team's interacting with the doctors, with the clients, how well are your doctors actually communicating medical things. And I think AI can help us figure all that out. And it won't be as awkward as like somebody standing in the room, and maybe a little bit more optimized because it won't be it maybe will be a little less subjective because it'll be, based off of like a rubric that we've built into the system. So I think there's a lot of exciting things that we can do with data to really improve culture. And I'm kind of scratching the surface on things that are potential options to like help you figure out where you're doing well and where you need improvement. But this is something that's really easy to implement in your own hospital to kind of get a survey on like where are you right now and where are the opportunities to do better.
I love that from the leadership perspective, absolutely. And I know Sebastian at Digitail, we use a lot of data and have access to a lot of data to inform a lot of our decisions. I'm curious about how, if you could tell me more about how you create a culture where team members are actually really using that data in a meaningful way, when we have access to so much of it.
Okay, so how do we use data in a relevant way? So I'd say three big pieces for this one. One is the data you pick needs to be very relevant for either the values that you want, so the culture you want to enforce, or for the goal of the team. So the data, that metric that you choose needs to be relevant. And a lot of like one of the pitfalls here, and we've also fallen into this one, is choosing metrics that are more we call them vanity metrics. So metrics that make us
Mm.
look good, but they don't really have any real connection with either the place we want to build or the goal we're aiming for. So just trying to be aware of that. And then after you pick the relevant one, the second part is transparency and data reliability. So trusting the data so that you don't have errors. And then 1 week after, you tell the team that, oh, actually, this is wrong. It's another number. So having reliability and transparency with that one. Transparency probably anyway. It's a core also value for us, but you can't really empower team members if you don't give access to information and if you don't educate them on like why is this metric important and why we should all fight for it. So that's the second piece there. And I think the third one goes back to when is this used internally? So what are the rituals? Do we have like a weekly meeting when we talk about this? Do we encourage people to ask more questions? Do we give proactive more information around it from the beginning? Do we tackle the difficult topics? So if, let's say maybe sometimes the metric is not good. Like, do we tackle and see what is the reason for this? Do we all collaborate as a team on how to make it better? So having those rituals when we talk about this and create space for that is probably the third bigger component of this.
Can I ask you a question? How
Yes.
do you decide what metrics are relevant for you guys? Like what's your decision tree when you're trying to figure that out?
Amazing. We have again the key metrics we call them North Star metrics. So basically, the key big ones. And in general, they need to be it's a triangle. It needs to be good for our clients. So if we improve this metric,
Mm,
is it helping our clients?
I see.
Then
I
is
see.
it good for us as a business? If we improve this metric, does it also help the business grow? And the third one, how easy it is for people to relate with it. Because if
Like your
it's
team?
yes, the team. Because if for the
Yeah.
team it's difficult to relate. Like imagine this one. The team goes with and meets with friends, and
Hmm.
they will brag about, look, this last month we've helped X. And if that X is a very fictitious number that's very hard to relate with and people don't really care about it, it won't really help them feel passionate about what we're doing. So it needs to be 100% a combination of these three. And then at some point you might figure out that you can't have all three and you need to pick two primary and one will suffer a bit. But that's kind of how we try to think about the North Star metric.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. Thanks for explaining.
I had Kaylee, you're gonna hate me and probably this one, but I had one question for Dr. Armstrong before we move to this one. Is you've talked about the surveys. You've also hit the
Hmm.
nail on the head. Is that AI can 100% help with delivering this personalized at key moments rather than doing a survey at the end of the week, end of the month. But I think what
Hmm.
you mentioned something about anonymous, not anonymous, and I know this was at least personally for me was a bit challenging at the beginning of deciding how to pick this one. Uh,
Yeah.
how did you end up picking again anonymous for doing the surveys?
I thought I would get more honest feedback if we all would love to believe that like everybody is not afraid of like telling us how they really feel, but I just in a leadership position, I think when you're asking your employees to like really give it to you real, it's hard. Like it's tough for them to do that. And so I think being anonymous leaves the door open a little more for them to really tell me what's going on and how they feel about it.
Mhm.
I also gave them the opportunity to opt out of anonymity, not being
Mhm.
anonymous. I think I just made up a word. And so because sometimes I feel like they're sharing personal things that I want to help the individual with, but it's not because there are some open-ended questions in that survey where if somebody was like, I want them to know this is me because I want them, I'm feeling this way, but I know the team, it might not necessarily feel this way. So and I full disclosure, have a friend who's like an HR expert, and is head of people for a large company. And she was saying that like keeping it anonymous or at least offering it to be anonymous is kind of the standard to make sure that the feedback is as honest as it can be. So that's kind of why I went down that route. Do you guys do culture surveys and is it anonymous? Is it not?
So we do
Or
it, we don't do it often enough, so it's more like a quarterly or twice a year. I think this was one of the blind spots that I had, and it
okay,
was on it was I didn't appreciate enough that anonymous is important because
gotcha.
especially there's a power gap. So again, different hierarchical things. And I know in startups and probably also like hospitals, you want to not have this. Like we're all equal. We're all working
Yeah, that's the
together.
dream.
That's the dream, 100%. But unfortunately, sometimes also again, different culture, it makes it a lot more difficult. And I was
Yeah.
very fighting against like, no, everyone should be able to tell things as they are, and we don't need to protect like again with a not what was the being anonymous? Yes. So that I
Yes,
also
yes.
demand
Yeah,
there.
oh sorry, I'm so sorry. Keep
Yeah.
going.
No, no. Well, TLDR is in the end also most of the advice from people leaders, people that went through HR. They also it's recommended to have anonymous ones as much as we'd like it to be otherwise.
Gotcha. I was laughing when you said you were doing them quarterly because this is the first one I've put out in 2 years. So, and like it's not a standard thing that we do at Firehouse yet. I'm hoping to change that. And so I was thinking I was going to send it out annually and then that year focus on the weaknesses and maybe send out the secondary surveys. You're doing this quarterly. Maybe you're moving a lot faster than I was thinking I need to move. What's your thoughts on that?
Hmm. I think there's a okay. the honest answer on this one, it really depends on the bandwidth of the leaders and who do you have in place. As in,
Gotcha.
sometimes when we ended up doing a lot more frequent, we didn't even have enough time to act on the items, or there wasn't someone
Gotcha.
in place to make the changes. And then, yes, we got a lot of quality feedback, but then if feedback comes without actions afterwards, the trust
Oh,
from people and
yes,
are things happening will go down and down,
it
and that was
erodes.
becoming counterintuitive. So I think there's no one option for everyone. It's more like what's the balance between do you also have the chance to implement and
Yeah.
take some actions afterwards.
I was gonna say that about the values. Like, if the listeners do decide to like go ahead and create these with their team, if you do nothing with them, that is almost after that fact, that is almost worse than just not doing it at all. Because if there isn't that follow through, which you were just saying, Sebastian, like that will hurt the trust between your team and the leadership more than if you actually move forward with the things that you can do. So I love that you just said that because I think that's really important.
I love all this discussion that we've had about tools and frameworks, and you've really covered, some of what we were going to discuss in this section already, which is fantastic. So you talked about your culture assessment, and then Dr. Armstrong, I know you mentioned it in your hiring practices as well. Can you touch a little bit on how you use that tool in your hiring practice?
Yes. So I pumped my values back into ChatGPT. People are going to think I'm crazy. And I had it build me out a framework for questions to ask people we're trying to hire. So we do a little bit of a vetting process whenever we're looking at resumes and trying to decide who we're actually going to come in for an interview. But once they come in for an interview, we want to ask questions that are open-ended, allow the employee or future team member, I need to stop saying employee, future team member to like give us real world examples of how they're living up to the values. The idea is to try and get someone who's already living up to some of the values, if not all the values that you've set. And even sharing the values with them during the interview and saying, like, this is really important to us. We are going to hold you accountable to these. The team is going to hold you accountable to these. We're looking for someone who wants to work in a place with a positive culture and is going to do the hard things, have the tough conversations to keep it moving in that direction. I think we've scared some people out of
Mhm.
working for us, but like people have turned down our job offers. And I think it's because we're really transparent and blunt about the expectations that are going to be had here. And then what I found, which I love, so anyway, there's this rubric on the screen right now that is our like hiring rubric scorecard that you can have AI build out for you based on whatever values you've come up with. There's also you can have it make like accountability scorecards or like start, stop, continues based on your
Mhm.
values and things like that, just so you can have documentation and have structure as to how you're going to hold people accountable. But I think what I've loved seeing as a leader is that we've curated this group of people that really want to be good teammates and want to move the hospital forward in the direction that we're going and build the culture up. And so when I bring feedback to them about, hey, I've been noticing this thing and it's here's why this is important that we discuss it because it's affecting the team in this way. I still get nervous for those sessions because you want it to go well and you like want that team member to like you want it to say it in a good way that where they're receptive and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was doing that. I'm gonna work on it. And what's awesome is a lot of the times they're like, you know what? I've noticed that and I was actually going to come talk to you about it. So I'm already thinking about this. And it's because they are living with this in mind. And like they're the kind of people that you want in the hospital and they're gonna respond. And anyway, it's made my stress having these conversations a lot lower because I'm all, when we first started this hospital, I was like, oh man, how's this gonna go? And now it's like, it's going to go well because they want to be here and they want to be supportive and they know what the expectations are. And they're not going to be surprised when I'm like, hey, I've noticed this, that you've been a little stressed lately and what's going on? And we come at it with curiosity and it's not this like reprimand. It's more of like, how are you doing? And how can I help? Because I've noticed that
Mhm.
this change in you and I want to get us back on track.
Assuming positive intent and yes,
Yes.
yes, 100% important.
I
Benefit of
Uh,
the
have
doubt.
I have one last rapid fire question for the both of you before we get into our Q&A. I'm sure those who are watching and listening may have some interesting, challenging questions. So prepare your questions. You can submit them in the chat now and get them ready. But the last question that I have for both of you is, what does your dream hospital of the future look like? Paint me a picture.
Okay, I'll go first. My dream hospital is I don't do anything on the computer. And it just like everything is just listening and building it out for me. And I know I'll probably always have to check my notes, but maybe the team can do that for me at that point. And I'm just getting to like talk to people and make medical decisions and do the stuff that's fun and like why I show up to work every day. Um, that's a really general overview, but I feel like that's appropriate for the time we have left.
And I think for that one, we have that in common. And I think my vision for this was informed by, again, talking with amazing people. And one of the vets told me at some point this story, and it really stuck with me, is that he was describing how veterinary medicine was practiced like 40, 50 years ago, where again, you would just go to a pet parent where they would come in, there's nothing to write, nothing to do. It's basically the conversation you have and that's it. And there's this melancholy of like, how can we get to that type of experience before, like we had at that time, but happening today with all the paperwork that needs to happen behind the scenes, with everything that needs to happen behind the scenes, but without needing to do it. So same vision of, can we automate everything that needs to be automated so that then you can actually focus and spend time on the things you love? And that's probably the future that we're all trying to work towards.
I think we're gonna get there
Getting more and more
with
village.
Digitail.
Um,
Wonderful. Well, I'll ask again for some questions in the chat here. Please feel free. There's no bad questions here, and I know Dr. Armstrong and Sebastian are more than happy to answer even anything challenging. This all sounds great, but I'm sure there are things that make it challenging to put into practice. So please don't hesitate to ask your questions in the chat.
can I throw two questions that I had? And okay, super quick. One was, when you think about the number of values that how did you pick, again, six or seven or less or more? How did you end up
I
on
know.
those? And
Well, I feel like I have too many.
I'll connect this with, you mentioned using them in hiring. Uh,
Yes.
is it realistic to believe that a candidate will be perfect at all six, seven that you have, or you're making some compromises somewhere? And I'm asking this also from happy to share our learnings, but more for everyone that haven't used values and now they're seeing, oh, I will have seven, and maybe they're discouraged that they will never find the right person if they need to find everything.
Yeah, this is a good question. So we have six. Firehouse as a whole has five. There's another group that has three. I think less is probably easier for the team to remember. I was struggling to get to less than six. So we have six, which is probably too many. So do the number that feels right for you. And I do think less is easier to remember, but I don't think there's a wrong answer. I literally Googled like how many values should we have, and it was like five or six max is like,
Mhm.
and I was like, all right, we're gonna max it out. So, and then to your second question, are you gonna get perfect candidates? The answer is no. And there's gonna be things, like you're never gonna know for sure that the person you're interviewing is the right fit, right? Never 100%. And
Mhm.
so you're looking for, when you're interviewing based on these values and you're asking these really open-ended questions, and it's tough. Like there are things like, and oh gosh, we could talk about this for like an hour. So there is like the energy that that person brings is a
Mhm.
whole like its own thing. And I know within the first like minute if I'm hiring someone or not based on how they're
Yeah.
like the vibe that they're giving me. And then how they answer the questions, as long as there's no major red flags and they're willing to collaborate, they're not afraid to like, you know, uh, talk to a colleague if they're having an issue, if they're avoidant, if they're I mean, there's some like hard lines. I guess if I'm going to summarize this, there are some hard lines that we won't cross. Like we will not hire people who say and do certain things. And then there's some things where they'll mention that they like avoided a conversation or went to someone else, and we'll use that opportunity to say, here, we will expect you to have that conversation. And we're going to challenge you to do that. And as long as you're okay with that, then and you're willing to do it, then we can have you on this team. But if that's not okay with you, then like that may have been fine there, but it won't be fine here. And I need you to know that we're going to challenge you to do that here.
Mm.
And so
Culture
I
is a
think,
function of, yeah, what you tolerate,
yeah,
what you don't tolerate.
exactly. So I think it doesn't need to be the perfect candidate, but the candidate needs to be willing to live up to the expectations you've set with the values that you've built. So as long as you're aligned on that, then they can grow. I mean, none of all my team members are really young, and they're learning, they're like 20-year-olds that are learning emotional intelligence and are like haven't ever had to have conversations like this at work before because they worked at Sonic before they worked for us. And so it's like there's going to be learning curves, and that's okay. But they have to be willing to do that hard stuff. And that's where I draw the line. If they're not willing to do it, if they're not willing to step up and help drive the culture, then we don't, fire fast if it's not working out.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of really great questions in the chat. So first one is for you, Sebastian. It should be a quick one, but what is the name of the AI tool that you suggested regarding conversation summary and medical summary from the medical record?
Oh, so I was talking about Tails, which is the AI assistant that is available within Digitail, and Summary is the one of the workflows that it does. So basically, the summary function is the one where it goes through all the medical history, all the conversations, absolutely anything that's available, and it gives you the quick highlight of that.
Great. Thanks, Sebastian. And then we have another question here. I'll be opening a new build practice in approximately 12 months. How did you set the baseline of culture? So really interesting opportunity to start from scratch, it sounds like.
Yes, I love that. Congratulations, Ashley. This is going to be a really fun thing that you did. I was you like 2.5 years ago, so really exciting. My short answer is you set the baseline of culture. The way you show up, your behaviors, you set the tone of the culture of the hospital, whether you have values or not. And so you are the first step. And then you're going to hopefully have a hospital manager that starts with you as you open your practice. Getting aligned with that person is going to be huge. Me and my hospital manager, we joke that we're married and we're parents, and our team is our babies and like our children that we're managing. And it is, I don't have kids, but my hospital manager does have kids, and she's read a ton of parenting books. And she's like, it is so similar. We have to be on the same page because our team sometimes literally goes to Phoebe and then comes to me, and we like give the same answer because we are very aligned. But that y'all's relationship and getting on the same page and understanding each other's leadership styles and like how you're going to move this hospital forward, and then living and breathing that every day so it trickles down, is how you start the baseline of your culture. And I would love to also talk about that for an hour. So if you have more questions or you want to chat, I think my email's at the end of this. Like, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much. And we've got another great question here. And I think you started to touch on it earlier, but how do you empower your team to bring criticism or to take criticism to management?
I think, gosh, this is so, there's a lot of
Not
sides to
easy.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your management, one of the questions in the survey is like, how open is your leadership to taking feedback? And I think thinking about it as criticism is maybe um, like an opportunity, right? Like is it criticism, or is it like we have areas of growth and I want to talk about this together as a team. And so it's really like healthy feedback that they're trying to give to improve clinical outcomes. And it sounds like maybe it's not viewed that way right now, but it has to be safe to do that. So it's almost like if your team doesn't feel like they can do that right now, there are some really deeper systemic issues that need to be addressed. You can't just say, like, let us know how we're doing, right? No one's going to, like, unless you've set up from the bottom up a system where people are giving feedback all the time and it's normal. If that's not normal, it's going to be really challenging to get people to just do that. So maybe starting with like an anonymous survey, if you're not getting feedback right now, is a good first step of showing your team that like we do care. We want the feedback. And if you don't feel safe enough to tell us directly, then like here's your opportunity to let us know in a way that doesn't put you in the spotlight. And the way that you respond to that feedback will be everything. It is either going to make a trajectory or a trend where they start doing that more, or it's going to break it. And so that is going to be your opportunity to set a new tone of how we're going to move forward with getting feedback to management. What do you think,
Yeah.
Sebastian?
I was going to say that this was a difficult lesson to take over years, and I think someone told me this, and I really remember is that a whisper from position of power is a shout, and that all feedback is asymmetrical. So basically, if someone from let's say another role gives feedback to higher up, it's never symmetrical in terms of reward, risk reward, because you risk a lot, and the best reward you're gonna just get a pat on the back probably sometimes, but the risk of that backfiring is means maybe then your job safety is no longer there. And I also remember one of the times when talking with the practice manager is that she was saying that I have difficult time going to the vet, who's also the owner, to tell them that they may be spending more time in meetings or maybe they're doing something not the way we've decided because again, who they're not in the right place to be able to give that feedback. And yes, you can fix that with data-driven feedback then helps, but it goes against you haven't built a culture of actually feedback and communication if it gets to that point. So going back to what you were saying is the more you encourage this and whenever you have moments when you've got feedback, make them very loud so people see that you're actually open, you're praising that. Also humanizing a bit more, making mistakes, being open to them and owning them.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that surprisingly goes a long way. And maybe this one for clinics that are maybe smaller in terms of team size, if you do anonymous, but there's only 4 team members, I'm not 100% sure everyone will feel safe through that
Mm-hmm.
like anonymous deal because you could always kind of reverse engineer and see who said what. So just thinking that maybe it needs to be bigger as a team size in order to really feel that safety as a team member to
Maybe that's a better like small conversation with the team
Mhm.
if it's really small. Yeah.
I do see that we have 2 questions left here, but I don't want to rush those answers because they're great questions. So I know, Dr. Armstrong, you said you'd be willing to share more information through your contact information. So that is there for you folks. And we will be sharing these resources in an email and a recording after the conversation today. So there'll be an opportunity to gain some more learnings by reviewing that. I do want to make sure that we take the time to say thank you very much to all of you for attending the webinar today. We really appreciate it. And also very grateful to Dr. Armstrong and to Sebastian for sharing their very meaningful insights today. I know that we all definitely took away something from this conversation and it got us thinking about lots of different areas of veterinary medicine. So I really appreciate your experience, your expertise, and your time. And again, thank you to everyone for engaging, for your wonderful questions, and for your time and attention. And I hope that everyone, no matter where you are in the world, in the country, you have a great rest of your day today. And so we'll say goodbye here and look forward to seeing you at another potential webinar in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
This was a lot of fun.
Indeed.